For years, if you asked the Mortal Kombat fan what was the worst era of the franchise, there was one answer you heard over and over and over again, and that's the Mortal Kombat 3D era. You know, Mortal Kombat 4, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Shaolin Monks, and Armageddon. People called it the downfall of Mortal Kombat. They say that it originally killed the series, and they say, you know, the new characters were boring, they say the gameplay was clunky, they hated the switch to the whole 3D era style, and they constantly compared it to the arcade classics. But something strange has happened over the last several years. That same era that fans used to mock has suddenly become one of the most beloved periods in Mortal Kombat history. People constantly ask for, you know, Conquest mode back, they want puzzle combat, chess combat, motor combat. The 3D era characters are returning to the roster due to high fan demand, and every time a new Mortal Kombat game releases, people still somehow end up talking about the 3D era, most particularly Mortal Kombat Deception. So what happened? Is this nostalgia, or did we completely misjudge the 3D era all along? Let's talk about it. But before we get into it, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming, news, reviews, playthroughs, etc., and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you enjoy that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. So to understand why opinions change on the 3D era, you first have to understand why the 3D era received so much criticism in the first place. Because believe it or not, the criticism wasn't completely made up. A lot of fans had legitimate concerns, including me. The biggest complaint was the gameplay. Mortal Kombat was coming off of the arcade era, and that was like fast gameplay, simple controls, classic characters, and then Deadly Alliance completely changed everything. You had 3 fighting styles, you had a weapon stance, 3D movement, something akin to like Tekken or Soul Calibur, one of those two, longer combos, and it didn't feel like Mortal Kombat many people grew up with. You know, the nostalgia wasn't there. People were like saying, man, this is different than the arcades. They were changing in a direction that they didn't like. And then there were some new characters that a lot of people didn't like. Characters like Dairu, Darius, Cobra, Kira, Jarek, and MK4. Some of these characters simply didn't leave the same first impression as, say, you know, Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Fans looked at them and thought, okay, who are these people? And another criticism was just the roster itself. You know, some classic characters were missing. If your favorite wasn't in the game, it was so easy to feel disappointed. And finally, the franchise itself sort of felt different too. Midway wasn't trying to make Mortal Kombat 2 again or something like that. They were reinventing everything, and that scared a lot of fans away. And honestly, that's completely understandable for them. But to be honest, here's where I think people were unfair, because while everyone focused on what changed, they ignored everything that the 3D era added. Deadly Alliance introduced the Crypt, one of the greatest unlock systems in fighting game history, and MK11 expanded on it heavily, and there was like a whole new semi-open world with lots of puzzles and everything. But you know, MK1 just threw it all away for some reason. Instead of buying DLCs, you earned coins, you opened coffins, you discovered secrets. Every unlock felt exciting, whether that was a video, a concept art, an alternate costume, or a new character. And then Mortal Kombat Deception expanded everything too. You had the Conquest mode, and that wasn't just a tutorial like how MK Deadly Alliance had it. It was a whole new adventure game. You explored multiple realms, you met masters, you met NPCs, different fighters, you learned lore, you unlocked characters, found hidden rewards. It made Mortal Kombat feel like an actual world instead of just a fighting game. Then in the same game you had puzzle combat, chess combat, and the next game you had motor combat. Were they ridiculous? Absolutely, but that's what made them memorable. Midway wasn't afraid to experiment with anything. Even if an idea didn't work, they were constantly trying something new. Like, they didn't have to do chess combat, motor combat, or puzzle combat, but that's something fans didn't appreciate at the time, and we love it now. You know, I guess, you know, some people were like, oh yeah, this is cool, but overall a lot of people were saying, you know, okay, this was wacky, I don't know why that's in the game. But you know, looking back, I loved it, and a lot of fans now love it so much, at least more than that crappy invasions mode or whatever they want to do nowadays that just sucks ass. And one thing I think the 3D era absolutely nailed was identity. Each game sort of felt unique in their own way, even though they had the same gameplay and sort of like the same character styles and everything. I feel like Deadly Alliance felt darker, Deception felt more mysterious, and Armageddon felt like the ultimate celebration of Mortal Kombat history. You could immediately tell which game you were playing. They weren't afraid to have their own personality. Modern Mortal Kombat games are polished, they're beautiful, they're cinematic, but sometimes they sort of just blend together together more than the 3D era ever did. But now let's compare everything that I said and compare that to modern Mortal Kombat and see how that changed the conversation. So fast forward to today, because this is where opinions started changing. Modern Mortal Kombat introduced problems that the 3D era simply didn't have, and they were microtransactions, live service elements, seasonal grinding, premium skins, DLCs like characters sold separately, online only features. Players slowly started asking themselves, what exactly did the 3D era do that was so terrible? Sure, you know, the animations wasn't as polished, the gameplay wasn't perfect, some characters weren't memorable, but those games were complete. They were packed with content, filled with unlockables, loaded with creativity, and suddenly those flaws didn't seem nearly as important. Like, compare Mortal Kombat Deception to Mortal Kombat 1. You take Mortal Kombat 1, you have a story mode, you have the classic towers and towers of time, etc. You have the online, and then you have what? Invasions mode. Invasions mode is supposed to be the premier single player, you know, content. But one, it's online only because it revolves around rotating seasons, right? You get meaningless content, just palette swap skins, other than like the last skin that you get that's like supposed to be the premier skin. And then compare that to Mortal Kombat Deception. Mortal Kombat Deception, you have the classic towers, you have puzzle combat, you have chess combat, and you have a conquest mode that could take hours and hours and hours to finish. On top of that, you have a crypt where you could unlock cool alternate costumes, except for that Sub-Zero alternate costume. That one was ass, but you get it. MK1, you could just basically play the story mode once and then you're done with it. People got bored of Invasions mode pretty quickly. It was supposed to be like just a grind fest that nobody really liked, so then that's out of the picture. So in reality, what do you have? You have story mode that you beat once and then you're over with, and then you just have towers and online. And I get it, you know, it's supposed to be geared more towards an online game, but I'm just not having it. I feel like Mortal Kombat works best when it's geared more towards a casual audience, so I feel like they should have more casual game modes. I think MK11 did this perfectly with the story mode too. The story mode was good, it was okay, right? You played it once, you're done, but at least the towers of time was meaningful. You had content that actually mattered. Same thing with Injustice 2. You had the gear system, you had the mother boxes, right, that you would open. Now, I don't support loot boxes at all or buying things for loot boxes. However, I mean, at least Injustice 2 gave us a reason to keep grinding. MK1 didn't give us basically any reason to keep grinding. All the cool skins were just hidden behind a season shop that was rotating, and then if you've seen the skin that you want, you gotta spend $20 for the classic Melina Deception skin or something. It just sucked. And we took the experimentation for granted. Looking back, I think one of the biggest mistakes the fans made was taking Midway's creativity for granted. Every new game felt unpredictable. You never knew what crazy feature they were going to introduce next. Maybe it was Conquest, maybe it was chess combat, maybe it was create a fighter, maybe it was motor combat. Some ideas failed, but some became fan favorites, but they kept trying and trying. Modern Mortal Kombat plays things way too safe. The formula has become much more predictable, and ironically, that made fans appreciate the older experimentation even more. And to be honest, were the characters really that bad? Because another opinion that changed dramatically is how people view the 3D era characters. For years, they were considered the weakest cast in the franchise, and now fans constantly ask for characters like Havoc, Ashura, Li Mei, Nitara, Raiko, Serena, Hotaru, Kai. Even characters that used to be ignored have dedicated fan bases. Even characters like Suhao, Cobra, Dairu, Kira. Now, were there ass characters? Absolutely, but every era has misses. The difference is people stopped judging the 3D era only because of its weakest characters and started appreciating its strongest ones. Now, here's the real question. Is this all nostalgia? I think nostalgia definitely plays a role. People naturally remember the games they grew up with, but I don't think nostalgia explains everything. Because when people praise the 3D era today, they're usually pointing to very specific things like the Conquest mode, the Crypt, unlockables, experimentation, world building, creative game modes. Those aren't imaginary memories. Those features actually existed. The older games really did offer those experiences. And I think what happened is that the time gave people perspective. When the 3D era was current, fans focused on what it wasn't. Now, people appreciated what it actually was. So the 3D era era in the end wasn't perfect. Some character designs completely missed the mark, some gameplay mechanics haven't aged well, and yes, to be honest, there were definitely some questionable decisions. But calling it the worst era of Mortal Kombat history, I don't really think that's fair anymore. Looking back, it was one of the boldest periods in the franchise. It constantly experimented, it expanded the lore and universe, and it rewarded players really well. And most importantly, it wasn't afraid to be different. Maybe the 3D era wasn't hated because it was bad, maybe it was hated because it dared to change Mortal Kombat when fans weren't ready for the change. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys think the 3D era was unfairly hated, or do you think that nostalgia is making people remember it better than it really was? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.